Why, hello there, you beautiful souls. I'm excited to get into this inadvertent Lionsgate of 2018 Salvia ceremony. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, smash the like, subscribe if you haven't. Um, this is a pretty wild one. I started off with the ayahuasca journeys because they really kind of catalyzed that intensity of the inner looking in the spiritual awakening process for me. And Salvia Divinorum is what really helped me take it all the way home. Now, the unique and cool aspect of this, I would say, journey and adventure and little psychedelic exploration is I didn't know about Lionsgate or the charged readiness of this day, but I just kept getting a pull. So we got to set the scene a little bit. If you haven't checked out The Awakening of the Gut, highly recommend checking that one out. It is the journey of the fear of God. Now, in that, I had gone through the first activation on, got my notes. I was going to make sure I'm keeping track of things. So I'd gone through my first activation on December 29th, 2017, and that was the physical death. I was being confronted with God. It's the fear of God moment that a lot of people talk about. It is honestly absolutely terrifying. Your body goes through this literal death. Like heart starts to palpitate. I was drenched in sweat. The mind, which hadn't been active at this time, was ever present, just saying, "You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die." And I wimped out. I came back to the physicality. And the second one happened on, there we go, on February 11th, 2018. And I could say this is more of the energetic or ethereal or astral. I closed my eyes while watching a movie because a character had passed and it was well acted. And I had felt like I was getting pulled from my body and I was grasping back to go back into it, being like, no, 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 no. So because of those two experiences that happened spontaneously, I was really caught up in this, well, what's going on here? Why am I trusting it? Why am I getting scared? Why am I getting caught up in fear? And I had gotten into this really intense, I would say, like application of pressure. I was getting caught up in the doing. I was turning everything into very like a kind of like a calculated structure. Like I'm going to do my breath work and try to evoke it. I'm going to try to see what I can do with this. And although I was still unpacking things introspectively, I had kind of been slamming my head against a wall, figuratively speaking. That actually plays into the story where I actually literally run into a wall. We'll get back to that. But so during this, I had still been looking into different plant medicines and psychedelics and just dabbling into all aspects of the spiritual, just really dipping my toes and everything. And as one does in this journey, I ran into Terrence McKenna. And the cool aspect of this one is it was another spontaneous video that had come up, and he was talking about salvia and the aspects of the culture where it grows in Mexico. They have a word for it, but they don't really know where it came from. It doesn't go that far back for it. Like they have a phrase for it, but they don't have an actual word for it, which is against pretty much everything in the culture of everything being identified by ancestors previously. And the thing that kind of caught my ear and my attention to it was something that was, they said it was gifted to them by their ancestors, by the earth. And even in our own classifications of plants, it's new. And outside of LSD, it's like a very low dose, high impact type of journey and adventure. And I'm going to be straight up with you. Like, I'm a 90s kid. So when I was growing up with salvia, it was nothing but horror stories. It was people, and even, I knew a lot of people that had done it. It was essentially people on various types of like terrifying spider bug experiences to like people running into fires. And I watched a lot of the Ari Shafir kind of deep dive into salvia where he was like doing it while driving a car and all this crazy nonsense. And I listened to his talk while he missed, like, experientially He was gone for like 4 months to 2 years in this like underwater city, had a whole new life with a wife and kids and all this different stuff. And I didn't really know what to expect, but it kept popping up in my periphery. And this is again before all the algorithms were super intense and crazy. So when it would come up spontaneously in like a little deep dive or a rabbit hole, or it would come up in conversation, I just kept getting this pull and knew that it was something that I needed to do. So the day that I decided it was August 7th, 2018. I was in the transition of leaving an old job and kind of like still in my own business. It was like the first year of starting my own business, and I had some days off. So the smoke shop experience of getting it, it was great. Talked to the guy. We had a really cool time. He was explaining stuff to me, got a little piece for it, like just for the ceremony. And it was really just like a smooth, chill, quick interaction, like not even 10 minutes, like 5 minutes in and out. And I had gone into an inner prep that day because my previous experiences with plant medicine showed me that I need to come respectfully to it. So although I was going to smoke it, I was trying to be as in reverence and appreciation and gratitude for the plant itself. I think that is one of the key things as we get into the journey itself, where, I thought I died and I met a family member and I was liberated from the weight and pressure from life and the self application that we do. So we'll get into the journey. Um, it was the 8th. It was in the morning. It was a beautiful day. I had kind of like safety proofed my house, like my apartment, covered all like sharp objects, moved knives and hid them and things like that. Cause I know that people are kind of like still physically active and doing things while they're still in this, altered state. So I didn't necessarily want to have an accident. Um, but I went through my normal meditation and prayer. And I'll say something right now too. If this video, gets a few hundred views and like 100 likes, I'll post the actual footage because I filmed myself doing this. Um, yeah, have that be a little teaser for it. And I go through my normal protocol and smoke it. Now, I held it as long as I could, and I did it like a pretty sizable amount, and it was one of the strongest ones that they offered. I instantly exhaled and was in a different space. Now, if you can see the thumbnail, that blackness towards like the end of it, kind of like purpley blue, but like darkness, is exactly the type of space that I was in. It was infinite on all sides and all around me, and it had terrified me. I looked to my left and essentially was in this void. And trying to look to my right, I thought I could run back like into my body and get out. And what I had actually done was in the real life, I had gotten up and like knocked the camera over and it was still recording everything and like ran into the door. And that thud caused me to run through my door. I was in the patio. It was super sunny. The colors were incredibly vibrant, but I was aware that I was not actually in my patio because the door was locked. There's no way I could have gotten through it, and the door was padded. Um, so just overall, that really activated me to be like, oh, I got to go back in. So I go back in, and as I'm crossing through the door, I'm back into that black space. And this time it's more conscious and can kind of move around to an extent. It just kind of felt like that free floating, like things are kind of coming at me. And I hear this sound like this, and I look over to my left and I see that it's this like deck of cards. There's nothing on top of them. It's just like these really big giant cards. And again, everything is like this black pure space. And they're almost like folding over like a slinky. And that sound is just, and as I get closer, it's unfolding faster and faster and faster. Now, the wild part about this is that as I look down, they're fading into the darkness. And it's in this moment that I full on am just feeling the, I guess you would say, like the nothingness, that is where death is. And I thought I died. Straight up was pretty convinced. I was like, oh, well, I did it. Here we are. Um, that's how that went. And when I started to look at the cards, I came back to that recognition that it was like, oh, I've experienced this before. And it was very much so like the first time I had smoked marijuana, where it was like a snapshot of now. Like every slice of now, every moment was its own frame. And as I was kind of looking into the cards, going into that like void nothingness, there was just a deep acceptance. I was like, oh yeah, that's life. Um, just one moment at a time, one frame. And here I am. I didn't think I died, but I guess here we are. And outside of that acceptance, it was almost like I completely surrendered everything. Didn't really remember that I was even journeying. Didn't remember anything of like my life. I was just living. And when I look up from the void, there are hundreds of people in very just beautiful, elegant, like white robes. And it's like the finest of gold stitching. And it's just like the color's so faint, but it's just shimmering through. And they're all just moving, like hustling and bustling. It's busy. It reminds me, I guess you could say, of like rush hour or like busy like work hours in like Tokyo or like New York, where it's just a bunch of people just moving, just a sea of bodies. And I get a little startled, like, what am I looking at? I don't say anything, but it's just that energy of it. And the moment I have that energetic like pulse, everybody stops at once and just kind of like looks up and looks over and is looking at me. And it's just kind of like this gotcha type of moment where they're like, wait, he can see us? Why are you here? And these are just all the energy impressions that I was getting. Again, it's very telepathic in some of these states. And when it came down to it, it goes back to the like same old default. I was like, I don't know why I'm here. Um, and I started to get a little freaked out because at this point it was just like, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I'm supposed to be like in my body. And fear started to come up. And off in the corner in the right, there was this beautiful white light that just started to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as I look at it, it's almost as if I'm walking into it and I'm in this very like TV version of my kitchen from my childhood home. And it's like the fridge is there, the lights coming from the window, and it just gets even brighter. And this is, I would say, the most beautiful part of the journey, which is thus far already unlike any other Salvia journey that I've heard, which is one of the reasons why I felt like it was really important to talk about this. But at this point, it was my grandmother. I just felt her energy. And even in the recording of it, you can hear me say, like, oh, hey, you're here. How are you doing? And the funny thing about this is like my grandmother had passed like well more than a year before this. She was not on my mind or my heart. And this is my mother's mom, which is very interesting. Um, but my grandma was there. So we had a chat. And the moment we start chatting and talking, I black out. You can hear words going on like in the actual video of this recording. And one of the ones that really stands out was, well, what is life without life? Um, and it's this exploration of, I know I was getting lessons on where I was at with my understanding of faith and trust, and also just that pressure that I was applying on myself. Because the snapping back to the conversation, the last words that I remember, and the only really words that I remember of it was, and remember, don't take life so seriously. And at this point, it was the aha moment where it was like, oh, that's right. I have my cat in my apartment that I need to look after. I have things I need to do. And I had just kind of popped back in the body. Now, to say that I was shook is an understatement. I was phased. I was shook. I had no expectation, but was still astounded and dumbfounded at the end of this journey. And when it came down to it, it brought me back to that recognition pretty instantaneously that I was doing too much doing. I was not diving into the spiritual search from curiosity. I was still chasing ultimately an experience in the previous two spontaneous happenings, like the fear of God and the death moments with the awakening of the gut. And it was derailing me. It was causing me to be very like overly rigid and structured with my meditation practice instead of really falling in love with it, instead of doing it from that inquisitive curiosity, that childlike play. And I would say that's one of the biggest pitfalls and cul-de-sacs in the spiritual journey, is that it becomes something that you're now, I don't want to say it wasn't performative, but it was soulless, it was heartless, it was loveless. And in that sense, it was cold. It was hollow. It was doing all the right things for the wrong reasons. And it really brought me back into this point of letting it go, just being more tensionless. And after that journey, it took me a little bit to really formulate it into words, but I had such a weightlessness. It had felt like there had been a huge weight vest and backpack on me that had just been weighing me down for so long. And when I was finally able to reformulate and journal, it came back to this recognition that this isn't the path to where I want to go. I want to lean into a life based on the fullness of the knowings that I'd experienced, that everything is love, that this isn't the end, that there is more beyond the flesh, that the fears and the temptations and all these things in the mind, the doubts, the shames, the guilts, the judgments, none of those things are real. And it was a beautiful pivot and reframe for my own life, because a few weeks go by, and towards the end of September I had the awakening of the gut. And I know that Salvia was a key in that journey of unfoldment, because it brought me back to that recognition of like, duh, you thought you died already. What happens? You still can connect with your loved ones. This isn't the only life that we live. And the more that I looked into my actual journey itself, the more I realized how unique and different it was from others. I had seen some through, some forum deep dives and some experience sharings on different boards and things, that others have experienced the white, like robed people. But no one had ever actually had like that many experiences, or ones that I had looked into. No one had any experiences of connecting with loved ones who had passed. And I would very much say that I've felt the veil be very thin before on different substances and things of that nature. But with Salvia, it was definitely just kind of like a pop through the veil, seeing everyone kind of like with the boom mics and the holding and like lights and things up, being like, oh, he can see us. So yeah, I will say that is the Salvia journey. And the most important thing that I can say is, treat it like a ceremony. If you are going to experience and dabble into that medicine, come respectfully. I still would really like to actually try it in the purest form of it, which is you essentially roll up like 24 plus leaves and into like a cigar shape, and you actually just kind of like slowly chew on them and gnaw them and eat them like a rabbit, so to speak. And you do that until it's really just mush, then you spit it out, and you keep doing that until it's all gone. And then it's a way longer journey and a little bit more, I would say, probably like less reactive in terms of like the getting up and trying to run around. And I hadn't done it since. That was a one and done experience. I felt complete after that. And it just comes back to the essence of this journey. We all have to go through our own initiations. We all have to go through our own path. And you have to listen to your heart. You have to use discernment. Listen to the themes of what's being presented to you numerous times. And whether you take that call or not is up to you and God. Ask for those types of moments of connection and guidance and support. But most importantly, really, like, this life is meant to be explored and unpacked. And it's up to us to really be curious, to pull the threads that are coming to us and calling to us. So very few people, from what I know, I would say are as courageous slash reckless slash ridiculous as myself in this sense, that do things solo, but I always advise have someone to journey with you. Um, yeah, and I would probably recommend if you're doing salvia, just like tie yourself to something, tie yourself to a tree or a bed or something like that. Because it's a weird one where, and I don't know if it's maybe a dose thing, but you're still tethered to your body, so it's still moving about. Um, yeah. And other than that, I just want to impart the wisdom of none of us should really take life too seriously. No one's making it out alive, that's for sure. And I don't mean it in the sense of life doesn't have meaning and don't take anything seriously in the sense of like obligation. But there is this weird pressure that we humans put on assumptions in life on it needs to be a certain way, it needs to be this, when it's a co-creation. It's not just you. You know, you're not just a human that has human things. Your spirit embodied in a human form. And that human form and your spirit are nourished by God, are nourished by air, water, earth, fire, food. It's a constant co-creation and life begets life. It's a huge connected ecosystem. And in that interconnectedness, we have to always recognize that no one has all the answers because it truly is infinite. And that's the importance of connecting with God. And I find that with these types of psychedelics and plant medicines, if you don't have an intention and a direction, it will throw you into the waters. And that's where trauma and that's where the negative experiences can arise from. So it's really important. And again, I'm going to be doing a series on this. It's important to set a container for yourself, to approach each thing that you consume with respect and reverence, because it does have its own consciousness, it does have its own energy, and it can be a beautiful love filled teacher, or it can be nasty, you know, like Matilda and the headmaster's lady. But with that, you know, I really hope that others can experience, and if others have experienced salvia, let me know. And if people are interested in the video itself, like the raw footage, let me know, put it in the comments, and I can upload that for you and maybe do some little chopped footage where I can kind of give a little breakdown of what's happening and relate it back to this one. But salvia gets a bad rap. And although I was pleasantly surprised and shocked and in awe with everything that I had experienced, the aspects of the recklessness that I'd seen in the past was really just different from what I experienced. Like to me, it's a beautiful medicine. It got me gone instantly. Very low risk, high reward, I should say, in the sense, and just how quick it lasted. Because this was only a few minutes. Let me actually check right now. I can see how long the journey was on my phone for you really quick because I have it in my collections. Okay, so 6 minutes. 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Um, and maybe I can even play a little bit. I can show you a little bit. So this was the setup. Ask for strength. And I can actually tell you the time. It was at 1:39 p.m. So this is post all my prayer and meditation. And then as we get it, we'll see if the yeah, do my thing. So I guess we can probably say it was 5 minutes, just judging by or even 4. That's wild because to me it probably felt like at least like 30 minutes. And I don't even know how long the conversation was because it was just instantaneous. So the funny thing about this part is that I'm still just in it. Exhale hits, and then I'm in the black space. And it's always interesting seeing what's going on in the body because, again, like, the experience of what's happening internally is wildly different. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll do a little breakdown, little video play-by-play with that one. And other than that, that's all I got for this one. This was a quick journey, but it was really impactful in the sense of what it opened up in the pressure release valve for my own inner looking, my own search. I can say confidently that I would not have had the awakening of the gut and gone through it completely if I didn't have salvia. I only know what I know and I experience what I experienced, but it was what I needed to have that reassurance and that firsthand experience that there is life beyond this. And to really not take life so seriously that it was hindering living. And I bring it back to that line of what is life without life? And I was saying it in a very like, what is life without life? What is life without life? type of like repetition. But when we really look at it, the simplest phrases are often the most potent. What is life without life? What is life without living? And I think that's where a lot of people are feeling the call to this realm of the intangible and spirituality. And we're seeing a lot of the youth return back to Christianity and just they're diving into all their own different religious experiences because ultimately we've been so disconnected from what makes the human being nourished, what makes life have meaning, purpose, passion, drive, direction. And I can say confidently that when we live a life that is against what we're truly yearning for and aspiring for, we are draining our actual life force. The more you have to dredge and sludge through that 9 to 5, the more that you essentially force yourself to do things you don't enjoy, the more that you're slowly just chiseling away at your soul and your spirit, becoming more disconnected. And that's why there's that saying, a shell of themselves. It's because we become hollow. And if there's one thing I hope people can take from this one, it's that you lean into your own magic. And I don't mean that in like the sense of like the new agey woo woo, but like lean into the gifts that God created you to gift. If you're an artist, but you're doing computer programming, if you're a singer, but you're working at the DOL of DMV, like life rewards courage. And I ultimately know now, obviously in hindsight, that's why the awakening of the gut happened so quickly after that experience. Because after my entire practice changed, my entire approach to spirituality changed after that. It really was this kind of breath of fresh air, like, yeah, okay, we're all gonna die. No one makes that alive. And when it comes down to basing things off of mortality, nothing's that serious. When it really comes down to it, those little tissies and those little fights and those little moments of, I would say, like the temporary pain and suffering, none of it matters compared to life. It's a beautiful gift. And in a journey that I almost thought I lost it, I came back to really the importance of it. And it was that reassurance and it was that trust, that deepened faith, knowing that it's going to be okay, that helped me break through when the spontaneous awakening of the gut happened in September. And then from there, the whole spiritual journey just got even more deep and wild because that's kind of where foundation's been cleared. Now let's keep rolling. So, yeah, with that, I got to say thanks for tapping in. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Like, YouTube's been having some issues today, so hope that everything's coming through nice and clear. It sounds like everything is. But with that, may the fruit of knowledge offer a seed. And in that seed, may your love, will, and intuition give life and nourishment, for a tree shall grow. And in its shade, may you find peace, and offer peace to all whom ask. Namaste. I love you so much. Thanks for tapping in. Peace.